And today we're going to talk about plants, outdoors, indoors, but from a different perspective. We have with us our favorite guest when it comes to these kinds of topics, and he is Jim Begich from Begich Nursery and Garden Center. Jim, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Art.
So normally we talk about things you need to do in your home, your garden, your lawn, and all of those things, and rarely is one of those shows controversial. Not so today, because MDARD, the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, has proposed increasing the invasive species list, and this has led to quite a bit of consternation in the nursery business and elsewhere. So let's start with what brought this all about.
Well, I think in the zeal of MDARD, the DNR, and associated agencies, is that yes, we have had problems, obvious problems with things like the Phragmites and so forth, and invading.
Obvious invasions.
Obvious invasions that are brought in from points west, points east, etc. Now, over the course of the years, other things have come in. By various means, people hauling them in their firewood or whatever vehicle that they might have. But, years ago, for example, they would bring in autumn olives, all right, Elaeagnus, which is one of the species. Russian olive is part of that. And they would grow those specifically for industrial sites that really couldn't grow anything else, to try and use them for soil erosion issues, things like that. Cover crops is what they were. Well, they didn't imagine that these things would, again, become, they first of all feed for the birds, all right, which we would think was a great thing, but the whole thing is that they just kept spreading and spreading and spreading.
The birds spread the seeds, right?
The birds spread the seeds, obviously going through their system and so forth. You can figure that out.
Yep.
And so the thing is that even though it did a good job of doing that, they never banked on the fact that it would get out of their control. And here is the thing: they could grow in really, really ugly sites. But they didn't care. They'd grow anywhere. If you had a good site, bad site, in between
site.
site.
Call that a hardy plant.
Yes. So after a while, they recognized that. So now, part of that list is, the Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association, which is an absolutely outstanding outfit, and we have a local chapter here. They have been looking at this with a great deal of consternation, because while we agree with some of the things that they have on there, what they've done is broad stroke this to the point where it's baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask this. When MDARD sits there and whoever else, and they come up with this list, which we'll go through, did they think to consult the nursery industry first?
From what I understand, they didn't care. All right. That's what I'm getting from our state office. They just said, we feel that this is going.
We know more than everybody.
Yes, this is an impending problem, and we want to get ahead of the game, even though the game's been over for a while. And then we're just going to do this because other states have done this before. So they're trying to jump on board and basically boilerplate what other states have. Well, you know what? We're not Kentucky. We're not Pennsylvania.
Different growing season. Everything's different.
Everything's different, and the farther north you go, the less of these things grow.
Yeah. Let me throw out some of the lists that they put out, and I want to separate them because I know there's one whole section here that the Nursery Association really takes exception to. Let's start with the plants. Water hyacinth.
Water hyacinths, they can be invasive, okay? There's no question about that because they proliferate.
Callery pears?
Callery pears, a lot of you remember them as the Bradford pear or the Red Spire pear or
Is that a tree?
Cleveland. Yes, it's an ornamental tree. It's been growing in the nursery industry.
How does a tree get to be invasive?
Well, it's their fruit. Even though it's a pear, it's not a pear-like fruit. It's more of a capsule, okay? And the birds will eat those too. But what they poop out the other end. I mean, let's face it. All right, that is not a genetic replica of the variety. All right, so it goes back to the original genetic boilerplate, and they can come up everywhere, and they can have thorns, and they can be nasty.
Buckhorns?
The buckthorns
Buckthorns,
buckthorns. Yes, it's another one that is actually thorny. Okay, but it's in the genus called Rhamnus. But not all the genera in Rhamnus is an invasive. Now this one is. It's a lot like autumn olive is. They've got fruits. The birds like them, and it's great cover. I think that's why the birds like them, because they do have thorns on them, and they do spread a lot.
Water lettuce?
Water lettuce is in the same category as the water hyacinths, because they just keep growing and growing and growing. Now, we don't really know how they got out of control in certain areas. I haven't seen them around our wetlands around here. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but maybe in some lakes where people have gotten them and they've thrown them along the shoreline, thought that they were neat looking, and of course, then after a while they do get larger. And there's some water lilies, I think, in there too.
So are these water plants? They only grow in the water on lakes? They don't grow on land?
In the wetlands, right. They're only growing in the wetlands, the lowlands, or like water lilies. They'll go down 3-4 feet. You know.
So I have to ask, as a pure novice in this, you got a water lettuce plant and it grows and it's invasive in the water and all of that. So what? What does it do? What does it cause that you don't want it?
Well, what they're the most obvious thing is they actually get so thick that they shade the underlying area. Sunlight can't get through.
All right.
It changes the pH of the water. It changes the flora and the fauna of the water, and it ends up choking out things that are indeed native.
So there's a reason.
There's a good reason.
Point of my question.
There's a good reason. There's always a good premise to begin with on these things. All right, it's just a matter of the extent that they take it. You see, there's always a good reason.
And if this list becomes permanent, it would bar organizations like yours from selling them, right?
From selling
Probably
them,
you don't sell many of them anyway, do you?
Well, on those types of water plants, no. In fact, we're considering not selling any water plants at all, just because we just don't want to deal with the grief.
Yeah. There's another segment though, of which there is much consternation, and we will get to that. I'm going to take a break. We're talking to Jim Begic from Begic Nursery and Garden Center, and we will be back with him after these notes.
It could be the best years of your
All right, we're back with you. We're talking to Jim Begic from Begic Nursery and Garden Center. We're talking about an MDARD proposal to name certain non-native plants as invasive species, and we went through a few of them which probably could stand to be on the list. But there's one whole species that the nurserymen have a problem with, and it's called the Japanese barberry species, because MDARD proposed that every type of plant within that species be on the list. So tell us about, first of all, the species and what the cultivars and varieties are within that species that don't belong on this list.
Okay, I think first of all you got to start with this. When if I was going to paint a picture of barberries in general, all right.
Oh, I know what you're going to do. I love it.
They're going to say those were those picker bushes, okay, because they were famous for their thorns, and they were quite thorny and they hurt. And the Japanese barberries were part of that, and they were easy to grow. They were in the nursery industry way back in the 20s, 30s, etc. If you go back that far, and then there were green versions, and then there were burgundy versions, and people will grow the burgundy versions because of the leaf color. Okay, now these also got rather large. They could get to be 6, 7, 8 feet tall if they went unchecked. But they did flower. They had a little yellow flower on them, and they would eventually have seeds. They were great cover plants. The birds loved them because no self-respecting cat would go near this thing, to go after them. I'm serious. I mean, no predator would ever get into them because they'd just look at them and they'd laugh at them. It was really, really true. So then it became quite prevalent over the course, mostly because of its leaf color, and it was a privacy screen. If you wanted something to keep potential crooks out,
yes,
okay, it was a privacy screen. Of course, then there were some ruthless son of a guns that were out there with that, but put them in front of the gas meter because they didn't like the gas guy who read the meter.
Yeah.
All right, that's a different story. But then over the course of the years, because the nursery industry is as progressive as I hate the word progressive, but it is progressive to what it is, all right, they said, there's promise here. Let's start developing other varieties. So they would crossbreed. I mean, and these are skilled people. They would crossbreed, and they would find some that would grow shorter, some that would grow more columnar, so you could have a vertical hedge or a fence.
And I bet a lot of that was done in universities.
It was. Down in Michigan State universities, that's where those things all began. Ohio State, Purdue, Cornell was huge, was hugely involved in this, and there were great plant breeders across the country. Well, anyway, eventually they saw in some of these states where the original species, Berberis thunbergii, it's a mouthful, thunbergii, the Japanese barberry, or the picker bushes that everybody said, well, they got out into the wild a little bit because of the birds transporting them, okay? Birds fed on them, moved them around. They said, okay, we got a problem here. Let's develop some other varieties that, number one, are more compact. Number two, we can develop flower or leaf color, and mostly leaf color. Number three, they have great fall color. So now we have low-mounded ones, and we have some that are a little bit more upright and slow-growing and have maximum heights of 3 to 4 feet, some only 18 by 18. But here's the key. All right, one of the series, for example, is called the Sunjoy series. This is a cultivar. This is not the straight species. It is.
Explain what a cultivar is.
A cultivar is basically a subspecies. There is something called subspecies varieties and cultivars. Okay, cultivars means this is a cultivated version of this. You see, to have certain qualities. Certain attributes.
So I might use the word hybrid to describe
it is a
something.
hybrid, and guess what? They're developing these things to be not necessarily seedless, but sterile. All right? So even if the birds eat the fruit off of them, they're not moving them around.
Right.
I defy anybody to find a Sunjoy gold pillar barberry wild someplace. It just is not going to happen. And so now there are probably, I would say conservatively, 20 to 25 different cultivars of this variety that are sterile. And there might be more than that, all right? And some of the greatest horticulturalists and breeders in the world are dead set against this, because what you're taking is things that have really great landscape qualities because they're compact, they're low maintenance. They are great for wildlife, by the way, because they offer protection from predators and things like that. They have wonderful fall color. They are perfect to use in layering.
Are they also thorny?
Yes. They didn't breed the thorns out, but they are thorny. But if it's compact and you don't have to trim it, don't touch it.
I don't care. Yeah.
I don't care. It's like the doctor says, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. Anyway, the whole point is, you don't have to touch it. It's a compact version, okay, and it's very valuable in that regard. And again, all of those reasons is why they should not be included in this. Straight species, we have no problem with.
Yeah.
Okay, and besides that, it's not even grown in the industry anymore. That was years ago. They took that right out of circulation.
So I have to ask this. MDARD sits there in Lansing making all these pronouncements. Does the landscape industry have a voice? Can you go to them with scientific evidence and say, look, this belongs on there, this doesn't belong on there? Yeah. Do they listen?
Yes, they do, and they've been active on this. I have to give them a lot of credit. Amy Upton down at Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association has been on this like a hawk. She is, presenting evidence from different parts of the industry, scientific evidence that says this poses no risk. But the first time we brought it up, we were pretty much laughed out of the place. It says, no, we're going to do what we want to do. And regardless, because then we're protecting everybody against everything. Well, like every vaccination is going to protect you against everything. I mentioned to you before when we weren't on the air, I said, wild boars are basically the same genus as domestic pig.
Right.
Okay? So, yes, we don't want wild boars running rampant out there, and we know that this is a problem. So let's say we ban the wild boars, and we're going to have a hunting season, and we're going to get rid of them. Okay? Now, are you going to throw the pigs in with it, and we don't have
the whole species?
Yeah, the whole species, because they're part of the species. This is the same thing. All right? It sounds like I'm reaching for straws here, but I'm not.
So we can look at the Japanese barberry as the pig species.
Yeah.
But
it's a different variety.
The whole species rather than just the offending part.
Right. Exactly. This is, again, this is a classic form of overreach by agencies that are non-elected, that are appointed. All right. Non-accountable. They have the power to do so. And granted, I think some of the things that they are doing are admirable. I am not throwing them under the bus in this regard. We are never going to do that. We think that those things that they are addressing, for the most part, are quite good because we're thinking long term. But this is short-sighted and premature.
Overreach.
Absolutely, in the best sense of the word.
When is all this supposed to be finalized?
Monday. Is the last
coming?
Monday is the last day that you can put in comment. When they're actually going to act on it, I'm not too sure. But you can put in comment. There is an MDARD website, MDARD website .gov website, and I forgot to bring it with me, but that you can go on, and anybody in the industry especially should go on it. There are surveys that you can go on. There's a comment section in the bottom that you really should fill out.
So your representatives through the Landscapers Association, do they have a sense as to which direction this is going to go?
Well, I talked with Amy last week down at the state office, and she says they're doing their best. She wasn't going to be particularly confident. She thinks that they can make inroads, but it might be 50-50. The only other thing that could happen down the line, like anything else, is that maybe they revisit it, at some point later down the line, and then say, okay, we're going to amend this.
So is it more likely that the water hyacinth, calorie pears, buckthorns, water lettuce will be declared invasive, but there's a chance that they will split up the barberry species?
There's a chance that they will. The calorie pears, as much as we like them for blooming, I'm afraid that that's probably going to be included.
You're willing to give up one for the other?
Yeah. Well,
you don't want to.
I don't want to. Like, for example, one of the calorie pears, there's a very, very dwarf calorie pear that's great for home landscapes that really doesn't pose any problem at all. But again, it's gonna get included. It only grows like 6 inches a year, grows narrow like a pole. So it's a great plant. But when you're looking at, and I have to admit, I've seen this too. I've seen these things come up in the wild around here. Didn't happen at first, but it was like everything else. Over the course of the years, you have the tree du jour or the plant du jour. Usually you have a decade where that plant is hot stuff. In the 80s, all the spireas, the Japanese spireas, which are non-invasive, by the way, were all the rage because they were a short blooming plant, and they've developed so many since then. But then they planted a whole bunch of them. It's just, or in daylilies. The Stella d'Oro daylily was a extended blooming daylily. Well, you saw them everywhere. Well, then they planted so many of them, they didn't get invasive, but people got tired of them.
Yeah.
So it's trendy. It's like the housing industry.
So, how many invasive species that are on the invasive species list have we actually been able to control and do anything with?
Well, for far as I know, almost none. All right.
You can go after Phragmites, but you only go after them and you get rid of them and they come right back, right?
Locally.
Yeah.
Locally. I mean, they did some in the wetlands behind where I live.
They come right back.
Eventually they do. It depends on water levels, which have been fluctuating a lot, as you well know. The thing is, you're not going to stop these things. All you can really do is stop the production of them, and then hopefully, if they're going to try and eradicate in certain areas, well, they can do that. Yeah. But like right now, you got, I'm jumping ship a little bit here, but you got oak wilt diseases up in the Houghton Lake area, which is being devastating to the red oaks up there. And they're trying to localize it as much as they can.
All right, we're going to take a break. Come back. We're talking to Jim Begic from Begic Nursery and Garden Center in Bay City. More ahead.
Hi, Stan the Goldman.
Just, as they go. Once they're there, they're happy being there. You see, what they don't like is warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. Especially for things that if you've transplanted shallow-rooted things in the fall, they don't want to be heaved up out of the ground, all right? There's another thing about this year that we haven't had in a while, and that is we've had frost going down into the ground quite a ways. And, builders will tell you, frost line, the maximum one, you go down 4.5 feet deep, and then you're beyond the maximum frost line. So for footings, for houses, things like that. Well, the thing about frosts are, believe it or not, is that they're very insulating. You would think, well, it's cold, it's frozen down there. What about the roots? Well, the thing about root zone hardiness is this. That's a thing, root zone hardiness. And I've talked with Charlie about this before, about these fluctuations. The thing about plants in the ground that are planted and established, even perennials, is that once they're in the ground, like an ice cube, that temperature never gets lower than 27 degrees. Okay, so it becomes its own insulator. When you have plants that are in a planter where you have these outside temperatures that are really bombarding it, well, now you have an issue. But in the ground, I'm comfy, I'm cozy, I'm nice, especially I have some snow cover. Okay, now we've had some snows this year, but it hasn't been really, really heavy at any given time. Like today's wasn't,
No,
and an immense
snow.
Cover. But we still have some cover, which means it's going to insulate it even more. All right. Now, one thing I can say, and that is, I'm not too sure about some of the reblooming hydrangeas. All right. Hydrangeas are a big group of plants. There's 6 different categories of them. Now, the ones that bloom on all new growth, no problem. The ones that have blossom buds that are carried over from the previous year, well, we're different than the west side of the state who have been just buried with snow with lake effect, right? They get covered up with snow. Those blossom buds are cozy and warm like they got a blanket. Here, if they've got those freezing outdoor temperatures, some of those blossom buds can indeed freeze off, all right? And the other thing, those are what they call the mophead types, or what they call the macrophyllate, the big-leafed ones, okay? And I don't want to get too technical here because it gets confusing.
Yeah,
all right. So the thing here is that what happens with a lot of people, especially men, guys that are older, my age, your age, something like that, they go out in the spring of the year, and the thing they don't know about hydrangeas is they leaf from the bottom up. It's like climbing a ladder. You have a leaf bud, and then 2 leaf buds at the bottom, they come out. Then the next one above them come out. Then the next one above them comes out. But they come out, they see leaves at the bottom and say, the rest of it must be dead. I'm just going to cut it back. What do? If they had any blossom buds left over from last year, they just done cut them off. Okay? And then they call us up and say, why didn't my hydrangea bloom this year? Okay? So now, if it's an Annabelle hydrangea, the old standby, well, they'll still bloom because they only bloom on new growth. So just be careful. The best thing to do is leave them go. Just let them go until they leaf out completely by end of May. Then only cut out what's dead.
One quick question. I have to take a break. Bugs. Is this winter good for controlling bugs?
Yeah, overwintering egg cases, things like that, that will have an effect. Will it have an effect on funguses? No. They're always going to be around.
And then there's the box elder bug. Oh, I hate that bug.
Well, yeah, they are a nuisance.
That's all they are.
Yeah, they are a nuisance. That's all they are, and they love to get in electrical boxes and so forth because it's warm in there.
Yeah, they get in every place.
Everywhere.
All right.
Well, the stink bugs too, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, they come. They seem to come in pairs. We'll take a break and be back with more.
Jeff Gronsky here, back.
All right, we're back with you here on WSGW. One's final segment with Jim Begic from Begic Nursery and Garden Center. A caller asked, and we just got done talking about this, what damage do box elder bugs do? The only damage I see from box elder bugs is staining from their excrement.
Yeah, well, pretty much they're a nuisance more than anything else. Box elder trees, as I mentioned to you just previously, they are actually a type of maple, and they reseed themselves readily along ditch banks, wet areas, things like that.
If you get rid of the tree, do you get rid of the bugs?
If you've got a box elder tree within a half a mile of your place, they'll find you. Okay, because they love the heat. They love heat. Anything hot, they love, and they're very gregarious, and they just like to hang out with each other. But they are not harmful. I should say.
They don't live very long either.
No, they're not harmful. The overwinter egg cases will come out this year and so forth. They go through what they call different instars as they go, and it's more prevalent toward the end of the season. But they won't eat your roses and your other plants.
Yeah. So, other than controlling them, good luck.
Yeah. Now, the marmorated stink bug that's out there now, they can be a problem for people with blueberries and grapes and things like that.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah. Blueberry growers and grape growers, all of these, anybody with a succulent type of fruit, they like to go after, and they can damage them.
How do you protect it?
It's chemically. It's about the only thing you can do. I mean, they're really good at doing it. But then there's also, there's also the Drosophila, the fruit fly that affects them too. That's an invasive that came in, as did the marmorated stink bug. There are ways of controlling it, but then again, if there is a pesticide out there, sometimes they can use organics and they work pretty well. All in all, but you got to stay after it because organics don't have long-lasting qualities at all.
Yeah, which is why when you go to a store and buy organic produce, it costs more.
Oh, it does. I mean, it just does because it takes that much more to try and control these things. That much more attention. It's not. I'm not saying that's a lofty goal, but when you get into weed killers and things like that, people want results. I want that weed dead. I want that grass dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing here is there are certain things that have been taken off the market, but the product names have been called the same thing. So you think you're getting the same thing,
So is Roundup
but you're
still
not.
Roundup?
No, not over the counter.
Really?
Now, if you want to buy it agriculturally, yeah, it is.
But you have to have a license for that.
But you have to have a license for that. But I'll give just a real quick example, okay? All right, there are at least 12 different types of products with a Roundup brand on it. They all have different formulations, every one of them. So you better be careful what you're going to be using it for. But the thing about some of the Roundups, for example, there is one called Roundup Weed and Grass now, which you think was replacing the old stuff. Well, actually, that has a broadleaf weed killer called Triclopyr in it, which is a great broadleaf weed killer, all right, by the way, for tough weeds. All right. It has a grass killer called Fluazafop, of all things, but it works. It's called Fusilade in the agricultural industry because it controls grasses and soybeans. Excuse me. And it has Diquat in it for a fast burn off.
So that would be what I want if I have, for example, I have a gravel driveway, and every now and then I get a weed patch right down the middle of it.
Yeah, you can use that, but there's also another one. Okay, called Roundup Extended Control. All right, and it's called Dual Action. Now that has another ingredient, same one as these, but it's got another ingredient. I'm going to call it a Mazapic. A Mazapic will have control for 4 months. If you put that around your vegetable plants or your perennial plants, or even a newly planted fruit tree, and you use it wrong, you're going to kill stuff.
Oh,
So you better
good.
be careful. You better be careful.
But if I use
what
it down
you
the
use.
middle of my driveway, I'm fine.
No big deal. But here's the other thing: where you used to be able to use